Good evening. You are watching the news from the Sultanate of Oman Television. First, the headlines. The Sultanate's inflation in December 2016 increased by 1.13%. Iraqi forces retake the eastern edges of 3 of Mosul's 5 bridges. And Italian Coast Guard rescues scores of Libyan migrants. Those were the headlines. Now for the news in detail. According to the latest bulletin issued by the National Center for Statistics and Information, the Sultanate's consumer inflation in December 2016 increased by 1.13% compared to the prices in the same month of 2015. A price escalation of 9.42% in the transport set, along with a 0.58% rise in prices of housing, water, electricity, and fuel set, contributed significantly to the inflation. The health segment registered an upward price movement at 1.66% in the month of December compared to last year. In contrast, meat products witnessed an inflationary pressure of 0.21%, along with a 0.42% price surge in the sugar, jam, honey, and confectionery subset. Other food products logged a price fall of 0.32%. Looking at the past year as a whole, the Sultanate's average consumer inflation stood at 1.12% compared to prices of products and services for the year 2015. As more as 10,964 certificates of origin were registered with the Ministry of Commerce and Industry for domestic products exported to the GCC countries and the Arab states in 2016, of which 10,176 certificates of origin were for local products exported to GCC countries and 788 for local products exported to Arab countries. The ministry, represented by the Commercial Enterprises Control Department, registered 51 Omani companies subject to the Foreign Investment Law and Omani joint stock companies, with a capital of around 88.3 million Omani riyals in 2016. Iraqi forces have retaken the eastern edges of 3 of Mosul's 5 bridges, according to a senior Iraqi officer overseeing the operation to retake Iraq's second largest city from Daesh group. The retaken bridges are in the city's southeast and come as Iraqi forces also advance in the northeast, where they have begun battling Daesh fighters on the grounds of Mosul University. Warplanes from the U.S.-led coalition bombed the city's bridges late last year in an effort to isolate Daesh fighters in the city's east by disrupting resupply routes. Airstrikes on a rebel-held town in northwestern Syria killed 8 people today, a monitor said, the latest to hit the area where Al-Qaeda's former affiliate has a strong presence. The Syrian Observatory for Human Rights said that most of those killed in the Idlib province town of Ma'arat Masrin were civilians. Their deaths came after those of 3 civilians, one of them a child, in strikes on the nearby town of Urum el-Juz late yesterday. The U.S.-led coalition has also carried out airstrikes on targets in Idlib province in recent weeks. The Italian Coast Guard said that around 550 migrants making the perilous crossing to Europe were rescued from the Mediterranean, with 2 bodies also recovered. The migrants were picked up from 4 inflatable dinghies by Coast Guard vessels, as well as an Italian naval ship, an NGO boat, and a merchant vessel. The Italian Coast Guard said that rescue efforts were ongoing despite difficult weather and sea conditions. In recent years, Italy has been on the front line of migrants arriving across the Mediterranean and has been pushing for agreements with governments in North Africa to facilitate returns. According to the Italian Interior Ministry, over 180,000 migrants landed in Italy last year, an annual record. The UN has said more than 5,000 people died in 2016 trying to cross the Mediterranean, most of them on the Libya-Italy route. Still to come in our news bulletin. The Mongolian government is mounting a campaign to reclaim the lost relics and fossils long held in foreign museums and the curiosity cabinets of private collectors. Welcome back to the news from the Sultanate of Oman television. Within the context of training plans of Royal Air Force of Oman, a group of its fighter jets are participating in the activities of joint air exercise, the Eastern Bridge, along with the Indian Air Force. The exercise is being executed in India during the period from the 22nd to the 24th of the current month. The activities of the 6th annual Mahara Festival for Al-Arda camel shows concluded in the Wilaya of Musana'a in the governorate of South Batana. The two-day race witnessed the participation of more than 300 camels from various governorates of the Sultanate. The event attracted a big audience from various segments of the society. According to the monthly report published by the Ministry of Oil and Gas, the Sultanate's total crude oil and condensates production during December 2016 stood at around 30.85 million barrels, a daily average by 995,191 barrels, constituting a decline by 1.76% compared to the daily production during November 2016 when calculating the daily average. The total quantities of crude oil exported during December 2016 stood at 25.49 million barrels, a daily average of 822,313 barrels, comprising a decline by 11.17% compared to November 2016 when calculating the daily average. The trading of Oman crude oil future contract at Dubai Mercantile Exchange rose by 18.4% compared to last month. The National Ferries Company transferred around 230,000 passengers on its cruises last year, with an increase of 7% compared to 2015. Statistics show that around 55,000 vehicles were shipped during the same period, compared to shipping 53,000 vehicles in 2015. Statistics issued by National Ferries Company also clarified that Masira Shanna route kept its leadership as the most active route during the whole year. The date palm tree pollination season started in the Wilaya of Dima wa Tayin at the advent of this month. It started with Nagal tree, which is widely cultivated in the Wilaya. The pollination process of a date palm tree started with cleaning the tree and removing all dry fronds. Then the farmer put pollens in the middle of the palm tree racemes as per its needs. The male date palm trees from which pollens are collected vary as per its quantity. Nagal is the first type of date palm trees that bears fruits in the Wilaya of Dima wa Tayin. For years, herder Galagrash had a sideline bringing tourists to see a dinosaur skull hidden near the flaming cliffs in Mongolia's Gobi Desert. Then one day, it was gone. It is one of the thousands of ancient fossils that have disappeared from the country in the last 100 years. More details in the following report.
Mongolia's Gobi Desert. Scientists and explorers have come to this region ever since dinosaur eggs were first discovered here nearly a century ago. Along the way, thousands of fossils have disappeared, many destined for collectors overseas.
From 1990, I started to help tourists and their tour companies find the bones. During that time, a while after they found the bones, those bones would be dug up and gone.
Suranjev is the only full-time ranger guarding this 10,000-hectare national park. She works with police and volunteers to combat crime, but the fossil-rich desert is too big to patrol by herself.
Although we heard that fossils were taken, we couldn't find thieves. We never caught or arrested any of those thieves.
Locals once thought fossils were just bones with no value, but that changed in 2012 when the government launched a campaign to reclaim the lost relics. This museum in Ulaanbaatar displays the collections recovered from overseas, some worth over $1 million.
The U.S. black market was the Mongolia's end point where all fossils were going. So with U.S. Law enforcement, we wanted to shut down that market so that fossils don't get that expensive prices,
After years of efforts, more and more fossils are returning to Mongolia, and Suranjev hopes they will one day be restored to the place where dinosaurs used to roam.
Now for the general weather forecast around the Sultanate. Clear skies will prevail over most of the governorates with chances of low clouds and fog early morning and late at night over the governorate of Buraimi and Dhahra. Winds will be northwesterly to westerly light to moderate. Seas will be slight with a maximum wave height of 1.25 meters. This is the Sultanate of Oman television. Before we end tonight's bulletin, here are the main points once again. The Sultanate's inflation in December 2016 increased by 1.13%. Iraqi forces retake the eastern edges of 3 of Mosul's 5 bridges. And Italian Coast Guard rescues scores of Libyan migrants. With that, we come to the end of tonight's news bulletin. From all of us here at the newsroom and the studios, it's good night.